Hello and welcome to the Engineering Moments podcast, where we discuss software development from a leadership perspective. Today's topic is on balancing between experimentation and keeping your system reliable. I have a guest with me today, Tabitha. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Thabitah Adebola Odunton. I don't know to what extent I should go with introduction, but I'm an engineer. I'm based in Calgary, Canada, and then I'm an engineering manager with Rabbook. Yes, recently joined Rabbook as an engineering manager.
Awesome. Thank you. And the answer is feel free. Share whatever you feel comfortable sharing. Right. Yeah, like I said, I think that a good place to start for today is sort of going to sort of definitions, or at least let's frame the conversation that we're about to dive into. So how do you how would you explain, like the sort of experimentation with new ideas versus keeping your system reliable, or keeping the lights on, as it were?
Okay, so when it comes to experimenting, I think it's a bit straightforward in terms of in the software world when you are rolling out like new features, like you want to like roll out a new features and you want to experiment in terms of like um how you want to roll it out, who do you want to roll it out to, and then also in terms of what percentage you want to roll it out to, like experimenting with new ideas, like you want to add to your product, or you want to add to the feature that you already have out there. And sometimes it might not even be new features, it might be more like maybe changing technology, or changing for example, if you're changing your maybe your database, or maybe your platform. For example, during maybe you usually use something like an express, sorry, maybe like an express or like a framework before, and then you want to change it to something else like a React or something like that. It's more like experimenting. And then when it comes to like stability or reliability, these are like a day to day, how you keep your currently running application or production environment stable, with monitoring, with observing, how things are, highly performant, scalable. And then in terms of also how you keep it like highly performant, like what you need to do, ensuring that you're fixing the errors or the bugs, optimizing what is currently like in production environments. So in terms of like stability of what you currently have versus adding new things or changing to a different technology entirely, that is where the experimentation comes in.
Yeah, thank you. For me, I find that a lot of it really depends on where you are at it as a business, or maybe the plans of the business. I've been in companies where, or should I even say, the maturity of the product. I think that's a better way to frame it. Some products require, um, let's say, when you're chasing product market fit, so you're constantly iterating. Um, at that point, reliability and stability isn't your number one focus, right? But then when you've hit that sweet spot of product market fit, you have a lot of loyal customers, you have repeat business, then um, you want to start focusing on making sure that people have a good experience long term across their user journey. So that's when I've seen the focus kind of shift, although it's never really a full shift, to be honest. There's always sort of some parts of your application where in these areas we're really fine with experimenting, and these other areas stability is more important to us. So it's always a sort of give and take, like I say, depending on where the product is in terms of maturity, and that's sort of been my experience with it. But yeah, just wanted to share that. And like, why do you think it matters? Or what opportunity do you think that gives to both users and business?
Okay, so thank you. Going back to what you just shared now in terms of like where you are in your, product phase, that determines
Yeah,
how aggressive you are with rolling out new feature, or how critical you are with keeping your system, stable, reliable, and all. But then in all, in like a typical software world or SaaS world, you also want to understand that experimenting or creating new feature is also part of like keeping the applications, stable or reliable. Really, it's like a part to reliability as well too, because what your user define as reliability might be how, you know how evolving your business is, really. And then when you talked about why it matters to users, why it matters to users is because we are in a world that is everly changing. Really, innovations is, what you know today is different from what happens tomorrow, and then it's highly competitive as well too. So the way it matters to users and also businesses is like you also want to be, abreast with changing features, changing offerings that your competitor also have as well too. So it gives you opportunity for you to be able to innovate. The way we do file upload and maybe the 2000 is different from the drag and drop, that effects that we have as of today. So if you keep to that you just want to maintain, click, select file, upload things, and then you don't want to go through the sticky, the very user experience where you are dragging, a lot of files and then uploading, and then you will be left, there. So you also want to keep your user, abreast with the changing technologies that is out there. And then also as well too, like you said, user experience also matters as well too. It's not just the fancy effects, but also how reliable your system is for them to be able to do what they want to do on your system as well too, without errors, without interruptions, as well too. So it matters to users in terms of building trust. When it comes to your app, they also want to like ensure that your app is usable, the user experience is great for them, and then they can do what they want to do. Like, business should be business. What they want to do on your app, they should be able to do it. And then for the business as well too, what it comes eventually is growth. Like, I don't know a business that's set up for not growing, really. So for the business, it means growth. Either growth in revenue, or growth in user acquisition, or growth in user retention as well too. So all this put together, you also want to ensure that you are growing by adding new features, and then also ensuring that your user trusts you enough to be able to like use your product. And another thing that might not be so visible is also your team as well too. With this changing world of software as well too, you also want to motivate your team, your engineers as well too. So keeping them motivated means that they have to experiment, try new things, give them room or the environment for them to be able to try new things. So I think it's a win-win for a business, for user, for your team as well too, for you to experiment and also be critical about keeping your system, highly reliable and also stable, for them to use.
so I think that, to be honest, it's another really big one in terms of you hire developers and you pay them a lot of money, and one of the things that developers love doing is building new stuff. They
Yes,
love
yes,
to they love to flex that technical muscle they have to try something new,
yes,
because we've both been developers in the past, and we know that the feeling when you build something new, it's really good, and it's one of the things that helps you keep developers, and it's something they need to grow as well.
yes,
Um, yeah, and I think that the other two things that you mentioned, I think really key ones are like in terms of growth. So as a business, keeping people, keeping customers happy, I think that reliability, keep retaining your users. I think that reliability has a sort of, it's easy to draw a straight line between user retention and reliability of your system, because the innovation brings them in, the reliability keeps them there, right?
yes, yes,
Because you can announce, oh, we've just launch this new feature, people will flock in and they'll want to use it.
Yeah.
But if they keep using it and it's breaking or it's clunky, or it's glitchy, after a while they'll be like, I'll find something else. But if they come in, if that's magic brings them in there, the magic of innovation brings them in there, and then you have a really reliable system, they're more likely to stay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that I think. Do you have any question? Any sorry, not questions. Do you have any?
What I just wanted
I
to
thought I
chip
was
in.
I thought I was in a one-on-one just now. Do you have any
What I just wanted to
examples
chip in. What I just
of
wanted to chip
sorry?
in is, while you're
Okay.
mentioning, you want to keep user, um, um, you want to retain them is also that's the reason why you see status pages on most of the big, systems, like that. Take for example like a GitLab or like a Google. They keep status pages, so that yes, things happen in production that sometimes it goes down, really. But then they also want users to be, part of their community that knows that if my system is down, you are aware. And I can easily communicate, faster when things are like really going fine. So that is also part of the strategy to like we know that things can go AWire, in terms of our
Mhm.
stability or reliability. But they also want to be able to like give you all the tools or the strategies or places where you could find, statuses of those about the application anytime to know that when it comes back in, they come back on. But then above all is also defining, reliability of a system in terms of how reliable it is in terms of like percentages, like, oh, 99%, you have those uptimes that have been defined. And then user can always find that you always meet, those definitions of metrics that you define as well.
Um, what kind of are there any other strategies that you've used or that you've seen that are good for either for innovation, it's like promoting innovation within your team or within your processes, or even ensuring reliability, either one of the two. Are there any strategies? Can you say for either one or even both?
Okay, I can speak to both of them. So in terms of experimenting or rolling out features, or switching, technologies or switching things over like a database and things like that, um, there are processes that have been advised and have been used over time, to ensure that you are keeping things in check. Really, one of them is maintaining, a good differentiation of environment for your testing, or separating your production environment from like your staging environment or your testing environment or your feature environment as well too. You don't want to test or experiment on production, whereby once you roll it out, maybe you don't have a good robust strategy or things like that, and then it goes to the user, and then oops, things happen, and then you're struggling to roll back. So maintaining a good testing environment, a differentiated environment for your experimentation really matters a lot. Either you have like a feature environment or you have a good staging environment that mirrors your productions, whereby if I'm testing on staging, to me as a developer or as a tester, in-house tester, or as a product manager, I know that this is the same experience that we get on production. So you are regularly keeping your staging or your testing environment, abreast of what you have on production, and ensure that when testing goes on there, it's the same experience that you have, in production, so that when you roll it out, it'll be like similar experience. Another thing that we use is also feature flags as well too, or whereby you can be able to control, you switching on or you switching off a feature in production. So there are sometimes that features rollouts are already in production. You have them in production, but maybe not turned on and off, or off really. It could be off, it could be on. But then you can decide when you want to like launch them or when you want to turn it off. And sometimes as well too, you could also do user segmentation, whereby you are turning it off to like maybe 5% of user, maybe based on certain criteria. It could be new signups. It could be new signups. It could be existing users. And then you define the rollout rate, maybe 5% or 2%. And then whatever data or whatever metrics, that you gather from those 5% will give you an informed decision if you need to like step up and, increase the rollout till you get to the GA, which is the general release. So if there's any problem at any point in time, it's easy for you to be able to catch it because just a small percentage of a user has experienced the glitch, and then you can easily roll back or you turn it off back. So that is like feature flag as well. And then on the side of, there are many other processes, but let me speak to the side of reliability and all. For reliability, and then also keeping your system stable, you also want to ensure that you have good monitoring and observability. There are many tools that will help you with that. We have Datadog, we have Kibana, we have Prometheus and all, whereby you are ensuring that your application, metrics is on top notch. You are measuring what needs to be measured. You are also ensuring that everything is running fine. You can easily detect when there's a problem. Your alert is set properly as well too if there's any problem, so that you can catch them in a way in time before any user even gets to it. More like you are more proactive than reactive. Another thing is also setting SLAs and SLOs. Maybe for like your page as well too, you have like all pages should run maybe below 1 second. Really. And then you alert when things are going AWire, or maybe you're already eating into your error budget, or like, so maybe you're setting like maybe 95% of your pages should run within certain time. So setting those SLOs, also helps you to ensure that things are fine. So there are other strategies as well too, but I really want to go, very deep. So I don't know how
Okay.
deep you want me to,
Yeah. Give a good sort of highlight of different strategies there. Thank you very much. Let me so let me start with the one for feature innovation and experimentation. Now, you talked about having different testing environment and using feature flags. I think that's really that's cool. I think these days feature flags are really common and they're really helpful. The mix between feature flag and stage rollouts has been really helpful so that you're more confident in releasing uh, new features,
Yeah.
and you feel like you can control if something goes wrong. Now, I once worked with a PM who had a really interesting strategy, and I've not been able to replicate it
Okay.
in other teams, but I really liked it. So the idea was that there was a time. So essentially, there was a sort of time bound. Like there's a amount of time that you could dedicate to experiment at a different stage, right?
Yeah.
So when you're at the really early stage of experimentation, you essentially focus on what kind of experiments can I get out within one sprint. That's the idea, right? What version of this feature can I remember once it was a sort of like an airline company, and I remember once we released a cancel for any reason. So essentially, we just put a button on the app, and when you click the button, it just sends an email to someone in customer service to cancel it. So it'll tell you, like there's no code, like, so we just wanted to see, are people going to use this, because there was a fee and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So are people going to use this button? And then the idea was we're going to run this. We're going to spend 2 weeks building this and all the sort of things that it needs to call. It didn't take up to 2 weeks in the end, but essentially in one sprint we deliver it, and then we're going to run it for a month, and then we're going to look at the data. And if the data tells us that this is something we should pursue, then we dedicate the actual amount of time to build the feature into a proper feature, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, it's something that I really liked. We did it a couple of times in different ways. I think the culture in that company allowed us to do that. it's been harder to replicate in other companies. I've done some versions of that, but essentially, I just wanted to throw in that this is also another strategy that I've seen that has been uh, really effective. Um,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
in terms of sorry, did you want to say any comment
Yeah,
around
I
it
just
at
I
all?
just wanted to corroborate what you said. So, I've worked with teams before that have definitions like at the beginning of maybe quarter or at the beginning of the year. OKRs are being defined along the line of new features. Like you're defining what percentage of time you're spending on new features versus maintaining the app, really. And then there are metrics that have been
Mhm.
defined, in terms of like this is the amount of time or this is the amount of weeks or dev time that we're spending to building new features, or this is the time you are spending to this, and then you track it as well too, and then also group our releases in such in such light, defining these are new features, these are experimentation, or these are even enabling another team, features that we be able to enable another team as well too. So I've seen that where there's a track between feature building, setting OKRs and metrics around that, or maintaining or keeping the apps, up and running. So yes, I think that's another strategy
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. I think I was kind of linked to what I was going to say. Second one I was going to talk about in terms of reliability. Um, that it's something that you need to make time for, because a lot of times when you're doing your quarterly plan, you might not know all the things you need to do for reliability at the start of the quarter, because
Sure.
things will happen, and you need to react to them sometimes.
Some
So
are even
usually we
stumbled
keep
upon.
some. Yeah,
Some are even
exactly,
stumbled
exactly,
upon, or even user requests,
exactly.
or user requests that
Yeah,
comes in and like, oh, can you make this thing better? And then it comes in frequently, whereby you now have to prioritize it. So yes, true.
yeah, yeah. And what we usually do is to keep some capacity, um, for some of our capacity in the quarter dedicated to any task that usually they call it keeping the lights on. Um, so any task that is focused on
KTLOs.
ensuring, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Any task that is dedicated to ensuring system stability goes into that sort of bucket, right? So we make sure that we have time that we can dedicate to keeping things up. But I mean, it's not easy, because the what you call it, the temptation to build something new is always very strong. And it is always, especially when it's not easy to sell some of these things up the ladder. Well, especially if you're new in manage as a manager, it's not easy to sell things that are not directly tied to new features on the app to upper management. So I guess the question for you is, how have you handled um, the conversations around selling, advocating for projects that help you build more reliability into your system, upwards.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a regular tussle between engineers and EMs and then also PM. We are all negotiating, and then I think that's one of the things whereby they say a good relationship between the PM and then also the EM, ensures that you are all negotiating and also collaborating together, for the success of whatever your team, owns, or whatever the company owns generally, where you can collaborate well with your PM. So at the beginning of like a quarter, sometimes we talked about it. What are the pain points that we already have in a hub, and rank them in terms of like criticality. Like this, we need to do them. Or if we need to do a new project or a new feature, then we can't do it because we need to fix this. We talked about it, we collaborate, and then also group them in terms of like there are some things that we could do, maybe up to a sprint. Like the KTLO's work. There are like few things that we could easily do, and then we can budget for them in like each sprint, maybe hack away at them. And there's some things that are big features that you can't hack away at them. They're like features that you need more than one person, to work on. So that's why the negotiation comes in with, the PM to say, oh, we really need this. How bad we need it? What is the justification? What is the business case as well too? You also want to justify like the business need, as well too. And then when we have this conversation, then we decide if we want to put it on a roadmap, when exactly we want to have it on a roadmap, either on Q1, Q2, Q3, and we can justify the need to have it on the roadmap. And then we share with the rest of the stakeholders. Questions comes in from the stakeholders, yes, but we already know why we are having it on the roadmap, and we can defend it at that point. So I think the first key thing is having that conversation first with the engineers, defining the why, what is the business use case, the need that we want to do that work, then taking it to the PM. The PM is more like a tree, they call it like tree tripod. We talked about it with the designer as well too. If you need a designer input as well to a product designer input as well too. And then once we have like a united front house, then we take it out to the stakeholder and then we present it. So yes, negotiating time to work on this is a tough conversation, but it happens really. It happens, and we talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense, and you touched, like I said, for me, the thing that's always worked is tying it to some sort of user value, or user pain points, well, user value, if you can tie some of these things to user pain points or to some commercial value, but essentially you want to be able to explain how this thing that you want to do will trickle down into value for the user or for the business or for your team. Because
Yes.
sometimes it might just be that, do you know what? If we go and we do this thing, it means that developers need to spend less time doing this other thing, and it can free them up to
Yes.
do other work that is more useful for the business, right? So yeah,
Yes.
so there's definitely several ways to go about it. So my
Yes.
last question for you today is for the people who are watching or listening, and maybe they're trying to learn about this stuff. Do you have any sort of three, from everything we talked about, or from other things from your experience, three key things that they should do, in terms of balancing out innovation and reliability that they can
Okay.
take and use as learning points?
Okay. I think the first thing is um creating that culture where there's an understanding of um building a product, or like protecting our application, or maintaining our application, so to say, and ensuring that the application is stable and all. And then that culture means that you need to involve the right people, like foster that collaboration of open communication between all the key stakeholders that would help you make that decision of when we need to do something, why we need to do it, and then what is the impact as well too. I think that collaboration first, pave way for other things that you might want to do. So if you need to involve your PM, you need to involve maybe a product designer, or if you have a QA team, the product team, and then also like maybe have like someone in stakeholder or higher leadership that would also help you with buy-ins, as well too. I think that's first thing, so that you all know who you need to consult when you need to make that, trade-off between if we need to experiment, or if we need to like spend some time, scaling the application. Another thing is also having a good strategy for rollouts and also rollback. I wouldn't say there's any team that would say they've had 100% rollout without any issue, without any error in production and things like that. But then the thing is, know that you can fail. And then what is the strategy for rollback? How can you roll back, quickly, that your user might not even notice there's a problem, or even if they notice, they, it's just small. Some of them is automatic rollback. If you're using Kubernetes, you can easily scale down back to the last stable, release that you have quickly without, any problem. There's also feature flag as well too. You can easily turn off the feature and then it stop, showing to user as well too. Or maybe you have like a user segment as well too. Maybe you're showing it to North American time zone user, or maybe African user. You can easily turn things off, around, if it's like a distribution feature flag kind of a thing, and then in terms of your rollout as well too, I think feature flag also define your rollout strategy as well to how you roll out, and you can also roll it back as well too. Another key thing, like I said, I've mentioned this before, is defining your test environment. Like, how do you test things? How easy is it for users to, or maybe your team, to feel confident about experimenting without obstructing user operations, like what user do on your app as well too. So you have like a stable staging environment whereby you know that whatever is happening in staging doesn't concern the user or your production environment. So having those segmented environment or strategy for you to be able to test things reliably, which mirror how your production looks. I think those strategy are tips that could help you ensure that you're balancing your experimentation and also keeping your users safe, as well too.
Thank you very much.
You're most
That
welcome.
was really, really insightful.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the show. Hopefully
Thank
we'll
you.
have you again soon.
Thank you.
Okay, have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.